I am super excited about today's guest on Tea with Jules, the wonderful Maggie Dent. Maggie has written 11 books on all things parenting and hosts the ABC podcast Parental as Anything, one of my faves. Her website is an incredible resource helping us all to navigate the many challenges we face as parents. A mum of 4 boys and an engaged grandmum, Maggie's life experience covers teaching, counselling, working in palliative care, funeral services, and suicide prevention. From this, Maggie has come to advocate for the healthy, common sense raising of children in order to strengthen families and communities. She offers special parenting advice for parents today on one of the greatest challenges we all face, screen time. And especially in the face of a pandemic that is causing us all to feel uneasy, her advice on raising resilient children and families is totally crucial right now. This is going to be a good one, guys. I'm so pleased to have you with us today, Maggie Dent. Welcome to Tea with Jules.
Oh, thank you, Jules. I was really excited. I love a good cup of tea and a chat.
And when I told my girlfriends, who are also mums, that you were coming, it honestly felt like I told them Beyonce was coming to town.
Oh, that's
you are just a goddess in the community of mums.
A wrinkled one. I love it.
No, we truly look to you for all things parenting advice, and you truly have helped us. And so thank you on behalf of all the parents out there. I am just absolutely honoured to have you in my presence today, truly.
That's incredibly touching, because that wasn't kind of where I started or where I aimed to, but being able to make sense on the journey of raising children in a world that's giving you way too much information, especially for us as mums today who have more opportunities than ever. We just can be so hard on ourselves, particularly. I find mummies really, really hard on themselves. So anything I do to ease the mama guilt, that gives you a practical thing that you can do now, or remind you it's unpredictable, it's crazy, it's noisy, it's chaotic, it's exhausting, and it is the absolute best thing you are ever going to do in your life.
Yes.
That is it all together in that great big space. I think
it's amazing how all of those feelings can coexist in one body.
Within
I feel like that every
apart.
day. Yes.
Yes. I remember shutting myself in the toilet sometimes going, oh my God, what was I thinking, having so many children? And they're banging on the door wanting to come in, or, they'd come in and chat while I'm having a poo. Like I go, I didn't really think that was going to be a thing and it's just life.
Yeah.
We really, really need to recognise that they are children, and sometimes our expectations are too high. And I think that's one of the first things, that just because yesterday you asked your child not to do that to their sibling, we assume that will be done. They'll remember it, they'll recall it, they will then take that action over the top of their own impulses that are driven developmentally, and then we get cross because it seems they've disobeyed us because we did the perfect parent yesterday. A really good thing to remember is toddlers, particularly up to about 4, are unable to have 2 thought processes in their brain at the same time. Wow. So the impulse to want to see what happens when I push my little brother over, to see if it's fun, cannot sit next to the one of you saying, please don't push your brother over.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Yeah. 2 different.
And the intention with our children's behaviour, and I'm going to say, 90% of our children's behaviour is developmentally appropriate and very rarely intended to hurt.
Right.
It's not bad.
That's very comforting to know.
We see it like that.
Yeah. That's very comforting to know, because you automatically think, well, my kid's a serial killer and he's going to go to jail when he's older. Okay, so that is very good information to have.
And when the older brother jumps on the little brother from the top bunk, no, he was not trying to hurt him. He thought that that's going to be fun and it's going to make him laugh.
And so as parents, we think we need to come in over the top, give the lecture on don't hurt your brother, that's dangerous. How do we handle that situation?
Okay, so the first thing is checking underneath that is to make sure they're not injured. Going to the one that may be the pain inflicted, attend to that. Now, it is a little different, Jules, with the boys to the girls.
Yes.
Girls in that moment will often have massive floods of emotion and often can come out their mouth as well, because we know that the limbic brain goes to the word centre for women and females. Limbic brain upset goes to the body for boys. And then in that moment, they are unable to speak or understand what you're saying either. They need a bit more time. So I have a little process that says basically check what the intention was when everything's calmed down. So we do everything we can to allow the storm to, because what often happens is a sibling has made the realisation that I have hurt my little brother, my sister, and it doesn't make them feel good. Mm-hmm. And I'm about to now get busted for something I didn't mean to do, and that just stresses them and triggers even more emotion. So if if I come on then with the growly face, mm-hmm. I've just added another layer of distress into the child who accidentally hurt their brother or their sister. Mm-hmm. So bottom line is, do everything we can to say, it's okay, we've got this. It's just, and some children don't want to be touched. Mm-hmm. It inflames them. Mm-hmm. And some really want to be touched. So you've got to work out how it works with each child and meet those needs. And then later, when everything has regrouped in that, we might go, so what were you trying to do when you jumped off the bunk? I just thought he might like it if I jumped on him from there, because we do wrestling all the time. I didn't realise gravity was going to build up the speed of my you know what I mean. So essentially that's probably why it was a bit high. Mm-hmm. So next time, really think about, is that too high? And they're still likely to do it a few more times, because that capacity to think needs a prefrontal cortex, which doesn't develop fully until the 20s.
I really want to get to this. That is in my 2 billion questions that I have for you, Maggie. And I have 2 billion.
I love it. It's a long cup of tea.
You are. You're an oracle. Well, you firstly just delivered an excellent piece of information. Thank you so much. But I want to take it back a little bit. First of all, tea with Jules. We're drinking English breakfast with a dash of milk.
Yes.
Please drink the tea. And this is your famous, it's famous to my emails because you sent it over to me. Your famous cupcake recipe.
Yes, and thousands of them over the years. And I love it. You throw it all into the bowl, turn the mixer on. None of this creaming, butter, sugar, and you just throw the lot in together.
Yep.
Throw it into a cupcake, throw it in the oven, and then chuck something on it. Done.
Very easy to make. Very delicious, can confirm. Maggie, I want to, you are obviously the guru and we're looking to you for all the information, but I want to know a little bit more about you the woman. Because sometimes we neglect that.
Yeah.
Not just our source, and then there's actually a woman underneath all of this that's has gone through all the emotions. Tell me how you first came to know this gift, I'm calling it a gift, and passion for helping parents and kids.
Okay, so it is an accidental journey. It wasn't one I planned. And as a high school teacher, there were times I would be in my class going, I wonder how come some kids thrive and some kids don't. And things like ones who give up. And I was looking at that, just questioning it. And then I became a counsellor because I was really good at understanding troubled kids and teens. And I wanted to do everything I can to make sure that, I could prevent one choosing to leave our world. And that's when I started to work with them. And then when you work with them, you need to work with the family. And then I ran some little mini workshops. But it was when I sort of stepped out of the classroom, I suddenly, I love reading, but I hadn't had time to read. When you're a full-time teacher, you really don't have time to scratch yourself. And I kept diving into fantastic research that was giving me all of those answers, particularly from the development of neuroscience and the study of child development. Really, not a lot had happened. So over the last 20 years, massive research. So I guess that's what I was doing. And I love the research, which is a bit weird because I'm an artsy girl. I'm an English teacher. I love reading. But what I grew up with was my dad was an ag scientist. And so there were times that he would be conducting experiments. So the kind of scientific-y bit was built in with my childhood. Mm-hmm. And I do remember, this is a little bit naughty, but I do remember once he was also into breeding and kind of genetics. He wanted to breed long-legged merino sheep because the grass was quite long. Mm-hmm. So he'd get really good merinos from Victoria and then do something to make sure their legs got longer. I don't know how that happened. But there were times I had to help him measure the size of the ram's scrotums with these calipers. Now, not many 8-year-old girls have had to hold that steady for their dad to measure it.
I don't know if any other 8-year-old girl has done that.
But so that's where it gave me that. And then when I was making common sense, because parents don't have time to read all that information. What they want is there anything that guides the choices we make today that are different to what we made 25 years ago? And there's a huge shift from behaviourism, which was very much punish poor behaviour, encourage good behaviour, and your kids will turn out all right. We now know that you can raise exceptional children without punishing them. That's the goal that I believe I bring into this workspace, into this space that says you can, and yes, some of your children will experience tough love from you. They need you to turn up as a parent, but you don't have to do those severe things in order to teach and guide them to make choices that, and what I think, try not to hurt yourself, try not to hurt anyone else, and try not to damage the world around you. The 3 rules that we just need to keep reminding our children. And that some days, try not to hurt yourself, try not to hurt anyone else, and that's with words as well as actions, and try not to damage the world around you, which is things.
Gospel. Love that.
So I've got a kind of little poster of it that I love it when people have it on their fridge, because you bring a child and say, so which of the rules for our family may you have broken there? Your job now is to make that right.
Wow. Putting the responsibility back on them.
So how will you make that right? But what's interesting, Jules, is when you ask a child, how are you going to make that right, or what would be the consequence of that? They'll say, you need to, they'll say, you need to smack me, ground me, gate me, and they say all these things that you've never done to them. It's hilarious. And you've got, what is that one? And then what we do is we let them be forgiven and loved again. So immediately, withdrawing love from children was one of the strategies that you were told to do. Just freeze them, stop being loving, push them away, put them in timeout away from you. They'll know they've done wrong. In actual fact, through the lens of a child, what they see is sometimes they don't understand what they did that was wrong, because the impulsivity of children, whether they've gone and found your lipstick and decided on your beautiful white walls, that looks a bit like a large piece of paper. I'm going to draw Mummy a giant, big picture. I can't find what else, so I'll use her red lipstick. And then we come in and go, what? On what planet could that be okay?
Yeah.
Through the lens of a grown-up, choosing to see it through the lens of a child behaving badly. So if we reframe that and go, whoa, did you do that all by yourself? Because the toddler genius is unravelling rolls of toilet paper to see the unravelling of physics. The fact I want to put it in the toilet is where things go. The same with your mobile phone. I just went, all gone. Because through the lens of the child, I'm working out how the world works. So if I can pause in those moments and go, this is exactly what young children need to be doing to work out gravity, physics, block toilets. Our job then, traditionally we can get triggered to want to punish the child then. My challenge is that we need to let them know this isn't what we do. If you want to draw a big picture, come and ask Mummy, and I will show you where the paper is, and I will show you the colour that's like Mummy's lipstick, because lipsticks were for Mummy's mouth. So I'm going to correct you, and we don't play in the toilet because there may be germs from wheeze and poos. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to get you the stuff you need to help clean it up. So in the clean-up process, you basically build an inhibiting influence over doing that thing again.
Because no one wants to clean lipstick off a wall.
And that's the thing, because what do? We get cross, we get angry, and we clean it.
We send them away.
So what we've done is make them feel bad about exploring the world, being a toddler genius, checking out, and this can happen. You have 2 beautiful boys who have a natural impulsivity to move their bodies, and with testosterone often want to test themselves. They will do things some days that they think are going to be funny or could work out really well, and they won't. Yeah.
Parkour is the new thing in this house. Leaping off of things and tumbling through the air.
Totally, which is exactly what their bodies are needing to do. And I think, that exploring the world with young children is, and I know that there's this window, and sometimes it's from kind of 2 to 4 or 4.5, where they fall over, bump into things, bank their heads, scrape over, fall on footpaths, and you think, my God, I've got the clumsiest child in the world. But what's happening developmentally is every time the body is connecting with the surface, their brain is rewiring how to anticipate where their body is without them knowing about it. So that's called proprioceptive awareness. So seriously, if I'd known that, I was really worried because my boys were endlessly covered in bruises.
Yeah.
I thought I might get a visit from, the Department of Child, Safety, because
covered.
And it's the same for some girls. One of my little granddaughters at the moment, she's just, seriously, she's forever bumping and falling. So we now know developmentally they're mastering their physicality without, then they want to jump on things like scooters and skateboards and things that they can really fall off. So they're gradually developing capacity. And so we often feel really awful if they hurt themselves, but they're developing and growing, and that brain architecture is constantly growing and evolving. That down the track, they won't fall over so much. They won't need to draw the picture on the wall. They'll remember that we do have somewhere that we have giant pieces of paper.
Okay, so how do we as parents, you're saying this in a very calm way where there's nothing has happened, there's no lipstick on the wall. How do we as parents not go from 0 to a bazillion in our tempers and anger and freaking out and, oh my gosh, they've ruined it? How do we find that calm moment of like, take a breath and do all the steps that you're telling us? Because all of that, it goes out the window when you're faced with a toilet roll situation.
Yeah. So really simple stuff. And the very first thing is that I have this thing called a parental pause, is that we are triggered mainly from what may have happened to us around the same age. Because that was a different form of parenting.
Yes.
And remember, our parents did the best they did with what they knew then. We can do better because we know better. We know more. So remember that. Don't go giving your parents a hard time because they were there. That's what we were telling you. That's what you needed to do. The parenting educators at the time. Yep. You send them out, you give them a good smack on the bottom and you tell them that's wrong. None of this warm, tender stuff. Okay, so that's the first thing to remember, that the child in you was the one that's getting upset, not the growing up.
Wow, that's big.
Right? So my child, bottom line, we know, if I know in that moment, take a big breath, because this is a toddler and I know there's a potential genius in them. They are meant to be exploring the world. They're meant to be using all of their senses to smear, throw. Yeah, all of those things are exactly how we create a really clever child.
Okay.
So you're looking at it, go, look at the senses they've been using. You take a breath, there's no question. Maybe a couple of big breaths, because as soon as we start to breathe, we get more oxygen in and we go from our primitive brain or our amygdala into our more calm brain, which is here. I really, really encourage you to bend your knees a little. I know that sounds really crazy, but it's a habit that helps us stay more connected to the earth, which is called grounding. We are less grounded when our legs are locked. If you've ever done Tai Chi or anything or martial arts, it's always off lock. That helps soften those legs. Put your right hand on your heart or your left hand. But I want you to put your hand on your heart and remember the moment you gave birth to this beautiful child.
Oh my gosh, this is all while we're looking at lipstick on a wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a habit. As soon as, after a while, what you do is your hand on your heart, you're bent there, you're already softened into the place you want to be. You're present now. So your chances of responding rather than reacting are so much better. And then what we're doing, we're going to say, I want to see what's happening through their eyes. So you're going to get down as close as you can to where you can see it from where they are. Because what we're doing is got a story from us. We need to see where they're at. And if you can remember this, we say, my child's not bad or naughty right now. Let me be what my child needs, a safe base. Wow. That's it. I'm just going to be the safe base right now. Because as soon as we flam in, everything does go to that place that makes us feel awful later and takes us 5 days to beat ourselves up over it. And I know in that moment I did have this beautiful mum tell me the story. She had bought in shopping with her 3-year-old and put it on the floor in the kitchen and said, look, I'm just going to run next door because I've got a script for the neighbour who wasn't well. I will be only a couple of minutes. She was a little bit longer than she'd planned. And as she came in, she's looked down the hallway into the kitchen and there was this kind of like large mess. And as she's come in, she was ready to lose herself. And she remembered what I'd said. And she said, just at that moment, my daughter called out and said, Mummy, I got dinner ready for us. So she's walked in and she's got a platter, which she got from a bottom cupboard. She's pulled some of the vegetables, broccoli and stuff into bits. She has managed to get the lid off one of the small containers of yogurt and put it on top. The kicker was she was able, this is a 3.5-year-old, so you need to look at how strong she is, had undone the lid of the 3 litres of milk, poured it onto the platter, which meant everything rose up and just went right across the floor. And her mum remembered what I'd said. She said, did you do this all by yourself? And she said, all by myself for you, Mummy. And she said, and that was the moment I saw so much love and tenderness in the moment that I could have ruined. And since then, it's the looking through their eyes that maybe that version I had about naughty and bad, I've had it wrong. So it's through their eyes, the child, the parental pause.
I feel like this is hard.
Practice. Very soon. Take a few breaths, hand on heart, bend knees, and before you know it, you're already coming down. I want to see it through their eyes first.
Having 4 boys yourself.
Yes.
Did you do all of this?
It's really weird because I've asked them this. I just wasn't a shouty mum.
Yes. Because that was my next question too, with 4 boys. Like, have they given you feedback on your...
Yeah, they always said I was a bit crazy. And humour's a really big thing. Yeah. And I know, and it's been interesting, out with the latest book, how many times I've talked about a well-timed fart. But my dad had a great sense of humour. And so I kind of was marinated in that. But I just innately knew that as a child I had felt misunderstood by my mum particularly. Okay. So I wanted to, and I knew that it was little things that meant a lot. So in those moments, and I knew once I had 2 boys, I thought, awesome. And the third turned up, who's a rooster with more energy than the 2 older ones.
Yes.
And he just, like there's this photo of him quite small, like this running with his legs off, and he never stopped. And he was like the greatest gift for me because he kind of turned up and he could articulate, why are you doing that, Mummy? I think, he's 2.5, what's he asking me things? And I suddenly realised I was able to see through their eyes. I worked out a couple of things. There was no perfect. They'll tell me I'm a relaxed mother in terms of cleanliness. So that meant I could leave the toys all out because I didn't have time to pick them up before I was the bed routine. I just left them, and I left them there for the next day. Now I know that's not considered doable today because the pressure on us, particularly women, to have them incredibly immaculate house. So I was relaxed around things like that. I believe I was fair, and that was really important in terms of me as a human. I really believe in treating everyone I meet as equally and fairly as possible. They probably didn't notice it then. And when things got tense, I used humour always to lighten it up. And I still do that, even though they're grown men.
Yeah.
And the last one was keep them outside as much as possible. I just felt the more fresh air, the more capacity for them to be as feral and free as possible, to run what I call the gunk out of their motor, the excess energy that a lot of boys particularly have, the calmer it was later on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think in a way, they will tell you I'm not perfect. Oh my gosh, I own all those mistakes. I do remember, the times that I've accidentally slammed their fingers in a car door and gone, what did you do that for? like as if they lined it up for me.
Yeah. Totally there.
The days that I forgot about book week, and how they can still remember how embarrassing it was taking his pillowcase with a picture on it. They remind me of those moments, and I think the gift I gave them was I owned those moments without needing to feel embarrassed or ashamed as a mother. That's as good as it got.
Yes, and that's comforting to us, you know, because
there's no perfect.
We're looking to you to have all the answers, but you know, you didn't nail it every time.
No, I did not. No, and that is the biggest message I want them to know, is that when I've mucked up, I've often apologised and gone on to fix it and be accountable for it. I didn't want to make an excuse.
Yes.
You know, I have left one of the boys at the pool. Yeah, technically, Dad thought I had him and he thought so. It was only 50% my problem, and the pool knew that it was our child. He was 8, and they gave him lots of chips from the canteen till we picked him up. Do you know what I mean? And I just believe when we were raising our children, people were less judgmental.
There's a lot of pressure.
So much judgment. I think Insta hasn't helped with endless pictures of perfect-looking children.
And do you know what else I think about that pressure of judgment is I caught myself doing this when the boys were a bit younger. Yeah. I caught myself reacting to how I thought I should be reacting. Because if you make a big song and dance of like, oh, you know, punishment and yelling and whatever else, it appears as though you're doing a great job, you're a great parent, or she's across that, she's onto it. And I caught myself doing that one day, and I thought, I'm not doing this for them, I'm doing this for those people that are watching on, so they think I'm a good mum.
So you will get people. So if you have the meltdown in the shopping centre or the toddler tantrum, either way, one is a little more conscious than the other, but they're equally a flood of cortisol. In the midst of that, it is too late to be able to say, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? Stop it, because they can't hear you. And what they really need in that moment is for you to just keep me safe while I discharge all this cortisol.
Okay.
So cortisol doesn't feel good. Anytime we are overloaded with it, we do things, we go, gee whiz, I'm going to go and sit outside for a moment and calm myself down. They don't have access to this prefrontal. So in that moment, our job is to keep them safe and alive. And if you sit down near them in the shopping centre, instead of giving them a quick smack or growling and shouting at them, you are going to have people judging you.
Right.
And it's the call for us to have the absolute guts in those public moments to be what your child needs right now, a safe base. Now, I am going to put my hand up and say that one of mine, in the midst of one of his meltdowns, took off running. So I definitely ran fast because he was heading to the exit towards the road, and I did rugby tackled him under here. And so I was the parent going through the car park with the child kicking and screaming at me, saying he hated me, because that wasn't how I would have handled it if he hadn't headed for the exit.
Right. You're still keeping him safe.
Yeah. My job is to keep you safe
and alive.
And alive.
Yeah.
So you do know that when they're discharged, so sometimes your children will have this massive discharge of cortisol after a full day at their long daycare or just coming home from school because they're exhausted.
Yep.
Right?
That is a real thing.
They see the safe person in the world that lets me discharge this because they all day hold it in trying to be good.
Okay, is that what that is?
That is. And guess what? You've turned up my safe person, and you're finally here so I can go, ah!
Okay. So we take that as a compliment,
Absolute
right?
compliment. That is a sign how much they love you.
Oh, well, my kids love me a lot.
Yes. And it really is, the pressure on them, Jules, now is so much more than it used to be. And unfortunately, they have to sit more than they used to. The formalised learning is more pressure. So it's constantly more exhausting. And for little boys, of course, they often have to sit longer than biologically and developmentally is probably okay for them. They can't wiggle and squirm as much. They get into trouble. Some of them have later development with their fine motor control, so they can't colour within the lines. So they see themselves as failing. They aren't able to put their hand on their penis as often as they'd like to when they're stressed. And Mummy said, listen, so I'm trying, and I can't remember what she said 5 minutes ago. So by the time they come to you, So our challenge is to know this is our child. First thing is shove good food in their mouth, because boys can get hungry much quicker than girls. Food first is a really good one. And then a sense of not asking endless questions. How was your day? Did you eat your lunch? Do not interrogate the child who, and there are a few girls who don't like it, but mainly boys, because then I can't remember, and then I'm going to disappoint you on top of that day.
Yes.
Anything I can do to say, I missed you, babe. And if you can sing a song that they loved when they were little, the wheels of the bus go round, really badly, then you're immediately going to tap them from this stress place into a memory place, which will have endorphins of love in there.
Because they remember.
They remember it. Hum one of their favourite, but, even if it's Twinkle Twinkle, immediately it starts calling them into something that's a little different part of the brain. And then that's the moment, if you can have some props in the car, flashing glasses, freaky wig, anything that can make them go, novelty shifts them into the other part of the brain as well. So that's why every now and then I love, if you can't fart, I would like mums to learn how to fart better, because dropping a fart right then will bring your son from the edge of meltdown into a space where his brain's able to run some serotonin and some endorphins. I know I've just told you to fart more when you pick up your boys.
I don't know if I can just
if you can't, but get the farting cushion and whip it underneath.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can't.
Just have a bag
I want
of
you to go
tricks.
into training, Jules.
Fart training.
Yeah, no, seriously, because it's one of the things that can connect you to the boys when they're a teenager.
That's a great
So you've got to
connection,
practice, a little bit of practice. Small ones.
Well, my husband doesn't have any trouble
No.
with that.
And that's and he'll know when to drop one to lighten the mood.
All right.
I know, I can't believe I'm saying that.
Speaking of husbands,
or
partners, or people you're
co-parent,
co-parenting with, I put out the call
Yep.
to my Instagram community, and they had a world of questions, and I have so many of my own. I don't know if we're probably not going to get to them all, but I want to cover as much as I can. When it comes to the co-parenting situation, I've just listened to you talk about the lipstick on the wall, and that's great. The hand on the heart and the breathing and all of that. And I've caught that, and I want to implement that into going forward. Husband is not here, has not heard this. I'll try and explain that to him, and he'll be like, "Bend your knees, what?" It'll just. How do you get on the same page? And what if you are on the same page and someone goes rogue?
Yeah.
And comes off the path.
All right. The very first one, how do we get them on the same page? So one of the things that we do know is statistically most dads really don't read much.
Yes.
It's just not their thing. They'll read whatever they're interested in, but parenting books, which is why, of course, we mark pages and put them in the toilet, because they spend more time there and hope they pick the book up. Anyway, so the best way is on my YouTube channel, I have almost 100 short videos about nearly everything I'm just touching on.
Yes.
So a 3-minute video, they've got a much better chance of watching that.
Got it.
Second one of the gifts that's come from COVID is the fact that the webinars that I've created, most of them are watching them with co-parents with a glass of wine and a pizza and having little chats, because you can stop it. In other words, that's how we can have those conversations. Now, the big one is go rogue. And so the same for dads. I can absolutely tell you that I've done a lot of work with dads only. They actually really want to be a good dad.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have one, it can be a little confusing, because they get triggered by a tough dad, or a dad that said that, or a dad that. So, and it's not all dads again, and not all mums are, like mellow and soft and gentle and all that. We all have moments. So when one goes rogue and is losing it, one of the biggest things that, we know nothing is better when someone tells you to calm down.
Nothing.
No, so nobody on the planet's ever calmed down by calming down. What may work is we might walk over to that co-parent and we might put our shoulder on there and say, I'll tag you out.
Got it,
right? So, because they've flooded with cortisol. The child that is going to take that parent, whether it's mum or dad, a while to come down. I'll just tag you out. And then we're going to take over, and they're going to go and get that coffee they may need, or go for the walk that they may need, or whatever it is. Because remember, when we're sleep deprived, which is really common if you've got children under 7, we're more likely to lose we're not able to self-regulate ourselves. So again, instead of seeing them as the enemy, we go in and tag them out. And then a long time later, whether it's that night or the next day, we'll say, okay, so let us have a look at what was going on then and see if we can work out a different way of managing that so we don't make them wrong.
Got it.
So we're just going to look at that, because if I lose it in that situation, I want you to come tag me out, because I can't pull myself back from there either.
And you've got to be okay with being tagged out too. Don't be offended.
No, the tagging out is, this is not saying you're doing something wrong. This is saying, hey, I'm just giving you a bit of an out right now because this is not going where we want to. Yeah. But when we have the conversation later, again, it's how we have that conversation. Again, it's the we. Mm-hmm. It's not when you.
Yes.
As soon as you put you in there, we're putting judgment, criticism, and of course that's just going to make everything a little bit worse. So again, we are in this together, and we have to embrace the fact that we're going to lose it some days and it's not going to go how we want. Mm-hmm. We beat ourselves up, and I know dads might not look like they beat themselves up.
Yeah.
They seriously beat themselves up, because that's not the dad they want to be.
Yeah.
And it's that really,
it.
They do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think that's the beautiful thing when we realise that we're all imperfect parents. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And let's be honest, some of our children are unbelievably obnoxious at times.
Yes.
No, let's be honest. I was one of them. I can remember being the most difficult child for my parents. And I think that was a good thing, because it kind of helped me with mine when they were like that.
Yeah.
So our temperament as parents also impacts the way that we interpret our children's behaviours. So if you're the gentle, sensitive and caring and non-raising voice parent, you are going to find your rooster child who's pushing your boundaries and questioning your parenting, like really confronting.
Because there are roosters and there are lambs.
Yeah, roosters and lambs are either end of the spectrum.
When I read... please do yourself a favour, people. Go and read Roosters and Lambs, MaggieDent.com. Yep. I thought, she's crawled into my brain and my life, and she's just perfectly described my two children. Yeah. I have one of each.
I know. And what's really interesting, and that was one of the things I wanted to put in 9 things, the book about, what I'd love all parents to kind of know as they make their decisions. No one really was telling people the fact that you can have this feisty child turns up, and high energy, don't want to share, question things, argue before they're verbal, don't want to ever sleep, got FOMO, loudest voice, you name it, this big combination. And of course, they often won't have naps. They fight it because they think you're wanting to force them to sleep. And you have the lamb child who just takes himself off for a nap when they're tired, or never shouts loudly when you're out in public, and you think, God, I must be the worst parent. I've just got to crack down harder. No one was saying that there's this little difference. Our challenge, Jules, and it's really perfect, Mother Nature puts often roosters and lambs next to each other in a family, because this lamb is actually softening off your rooster at times, and the rooster is strengthening. I know it's not pleasant, but it's kind of how Mother Nature prepares us. Our challenge is, if our rooster is not learning some empathy, it is our challenge to look at ways of building that. So we look for the picture books around it, and the way that we parent them around things is that I know you think that you are the only person in the universe, sweetheart, but we have others, and at times we need to think of them. So it's really, you're going to take on some emotional coaching around it. For the lamb, that lamb, we need to give them moments to practice bravery, because what we want is them in the middle. Because one day we want them to stand up for things that aren't okay. We want them to strive and have a go at stuff because they've got the rooster, but we also want them to recognise how to be kind or how to be thoughtful of others. And also, don't ever think that lambs are weak. My number two lamb surfs way bigger surf than his other 2 roosters, even though he was definitely the tender, gentle one who would even share, wait for it, his Easter eggs after the Easter egg hunt.
Yep. I've got one like that.
You see? So they can get boofed around a bit, but every now and then they're still learning how we have to help coach them how to make sure that there are times they stand up and say, no, stop.
Yes.
That's not okay.
Yeah, and they're stronger than we give them credit for.
Yes, and they are stronger.
Yeah. So this is the big one, because this is the time of life we're in. This is the generation we are raising, the generation of screen time. we've talked a lot about little ones and kind of, getting our toddlers to be great adults, because that's what we're
6,
doing.
7, 8, 9-year-olds. Yes.
Those guys as well. Because someone once upon a time did say to me, we're not raising children, we're raising adults, and you are big on that as well. That's what we're doing. We are raising these people to be good citizens of the world so that when they fly the coop, they are equipped with all of the things, resilience and kindness and
life
skills and being able to do chores and know how to clean a toilet, all those things. That is our job. And I just want to also say the fact that we care this much and that we read your books and we, ask questions and we talk about it in our mums groups is a lot. That we have come a lot of steps in saying that we care. We love our kids. That's why we're asking. That's why we're trying so hard. So we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break.
Totally.
And like you say, don't let go of the rope. Just don't let go of that rope no matter what is coming at you. Those kids will test us to the day we die. But don't let go of the rope. So just don't stop loving them and just keep them close as you can, even though they drive you nuts.
Totally. It's fierce, unconditional love.
Fierce, unconditional love.
And that means there are days that you will have them in emergency department while they have something else stitched up.
Yes.
Or you will be called to the school because they've made a poor choice.
Yep.
Remember, it's the fierce unconditional love at the end of it is that this is an experience that is going to teach you a lesson for life that somehow or other you need to learn.
And I'm sure I know the answer that you're going to say. All kids, teens, young adults are reachable. Right? And I think they all want to be reached, no matter what. I mean, you would have seen everything. You'd have seen it all. All these kids, at the end of the day, what do they want? One
significant adult who cares is what every single one of them is needing. And when they turn up, they can absolutely transform that journey. Adolescence from child to adult is a bumpy ride. I've called it a bumpy ride for years, and it's meant to be. And I love the work, that the whole hero's journey is Joseph Campbell's myth, that in that journey you're meant to leave that sense of safety of, being protected so much. We step back from our parents. We meet demons, but we meet allies, and we have experiences that shape who we become later in life. And I had some really big ones, including a near suicide attempt. And that really called me to want to work with them because I knew that place. And that whole point is that sometimes in that journey, you'll suddenly discover, hang on a minute, I want to become an environmental warrior because they've chopped the tree down in our street that was, 200 years old. So experiences pop up in that journey. But that same thing, we absolutely go through a similar window to 4-year-olds. We're very egocentric. It's about us, our view of the world, which can be fed incorrect information. And that's definitely what they're getting from some of the, screen content is things that we wish they wouldn't find out about or see. Secondly, do I matter is the biggest thing. It's like an invisible sign around every tween or teen's neck that says, do I matter? Particularly, me being so passionate about boys, if I'm monosyllabic, I don't notice that I stink and I'm not using deodorant and I've got a zit that I think everyone will hate me for. I've forgotten my backpack on the bus, and all these things are happening for developmental reasons, massive developmental reasons, not that they suddenly wake up and, If we have someone who says, hey, listen, it's a bit tricky for a few years and it's partly to do with your brain and your hormones and all these things, can we work out a way that helps you remember things without making you feel worse about yourself? The lighthouse figure is a significant adult ally who isn't mum and dad. And I call on every single person out there to look around and find a 12 to 20-year-old who you can connect with sometimes. Sometimes just saying hello in the darkest windows of early adolescence and never stop saying hello even if they don't acknowledge you shows that you've got their back.
Got it.
Yep. It's unbelievably important. And I think that was the biggest lesson I learnt after I left the classroom. I just thought, there were kids that I got on really well with and There were others I thought I missed, but I kept running into the ones I thought I had missed, who took me aside and said, "You're the person who gave me hope in my life because," and I'm thinking, I thought I missed that one. So it's us, what are we modelling for them? Are we modelling not necessarily how to be like most successful, but are we modelling that ability for us to connect fairly with others? Do we model for them kindness? Do we give them hope that this is a journey that does definitely disappear? And every now and then being heard, especially when our everything is saying, don't listen to me, like that juxtaposition, that back off, you don't know me, but being heard. Unbelievable, being heard. If I can be understood, that's amazing. Last thing we have to do is, can we help them find the spark that is in there? It would have been there somewhere in childhood. And, you know, fantastically, some of us have opportunities for, you know, a love of music, or, you know, for my boys, it's just been, they were sporty boys who loved it. One of them wasn't so much into competitive sport, but when he took up surfing, his life changed. Who he is today is still something that he gets worth and value from his connection with the ocean. That is a spark I got out of bed very early on weekends, which was not what I really wanted to do as a full-time teacher, because a carload of boys going surfing out freezing cold, it's who came back from that experience. Right. So it doesn't matter who they are, if they love to dance or they love to swim or they love to, we've got to find something that puts a spark. And I'm loving the fact that even though the screen world has definitely got some serious downsides to it in adolescence, when we're looking for validation, we're looking to find things that excite us and are risky, we do know that there are lots of kids that are discovering creativity online. They're discovering things that we couldn't necessarily turn up in their world. It's not all bad. And there are kids, once again, who, riding a motorbike fast is what their spark is. And that can also help them feel motivated in their school. Because once again, make me feel I matter. What puts the shine in my eyes? And how do we as grown-ups support the spark rather than worry about what are they going to do at the end of year 12 and the spark.
Project our anxiety onto
Absolutely,
them.
we do. There's no question.
Yep.
A number of times I was working with a teen who contemplated taking their life because they were sure they were going to fail their final exams or not get the result their parents wanted, and they didn't want to see that look of disappointment on their parents' face. Wow. We've got to be so careful that we have high, positive, realistic expectations, but also ones that say, and if it doesn't work now, life's a long journey. And that's giving them hope that says, okay, so they are going to love me if I don't do really well. And that's the unconditional, fierce, never is there ever going to be anything you're going to do that will stop me loving you. And when you walk in every now and then and say it to them, even when they go, whatever.
Yeah, they still hear it, don't they?
They hear it, and they need to have it in written messages. Both our girls and our boys, there's nothing you'll ever do that will stop me loving you.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. Coming back to screen time. Because I love that you just said that it's not all bad. Because I think we fly off the Richter. You know, everything's cancelled. You're cancelled. Devices never again. You know, no YouTube, whatever. But I think some days, as a fully grown adult, I love a bit of screen time. It is my reward at the end of a hard working day. Put my feet up, put the TV on, watch something on YouTube, whatever it is. I don't think it's all bad. You're right. And it's my job at the end of the day. I make money from the internet. And so, it's needed. It's important, all of those things. But how do we channel our children, our teenagers, our young adults into that lane instead of the dark?
All right. Very first thing is the first 5 years of children's lives, we need to know that any usage of screens can be displacing them for doing what we would like them to do. Now, I'm mainly going to talk about handheld devices and tablets and things like that, because the TV's been around before. And if you do have children, but you've got boys, they do somersaults while they're watching ABC iView. So we know there are high quality programs on our TV screen that you can also only have that on, like 5 episodes of Bluey, one after another. Now, that is never going to be really destructive and damaging to a child. There's absolutely no evidence. If they're doing 6 or 8 hours a day, again, it's displacing their movement. The handheld device is completely different. And early on, you know, and we're talking like, it doesn't matter whether they're playing something that's safe, that's not accessible to the big wide world of web. It is a smaller screen, it inhibits movement, the flashing blue lights are close to the eyes, and sadly, they are set up to build our kids to be gamblers. They get rewarded. So my advice again is as little of that sort of thing in those first years, because all of that development needs human interaction, words out of moving human faces, endless of books and conversations and physical movement. So when you're getting into the school space, obviously there is more usage of it in there. That we can look at that thing that says what's going to be kind of educational and what's entertaining. Parents, I think, are doing a pretty good job with that. You know, they're talking now that they would really like children not to be having any more than 1 hour up to, you know, like 8 to 10. Again, if we need a break, if we really have got to do something and they aren't prepared to sit and watch something on TV, then that tablet would have a download, whatever it is, again, is you have downloaded it. It has no access to sidebars, links, and all those other things which have all the disgusting pornography put into children's spaces. So again, that's the next one. Prioritising schoolwork again. Yep. And then looking towards what are the apps that actually create creativity, growth of some kind. Yeah. And, you know, there are some that don't. And you need to be there are really good sites that tell you which ones are actually okay. And then when we get towards a little bit later, my biggest challenge is to you as parents today is to leave giving your children a phone for as late as possible. There is no question as soon as that phone, which has digital access, is in your children's hands, you have lost control of the parenting of your children for a number of years.
How young do you think is too young for a phone? Like a phone?
It depends which one you get to. I just think smart parents get dumb phones. They're the ones that you can only ring and text on, take photos on. Absolutely no harm with one of those. And that's seriously a good idea to do. I'm really thinking towards 13, 14. You know, if you can do that, I know parents will go, oh my God, I'm already there. Everyone's got one. And we're just going to talk about the reasons in our family why we value this. And then our job as we gradually introduce it. So they will be using their, you know, computers and laptops and things for schoolwork. We still have to have endless conversations about how to be a safe digital citizen. We have to talk to them about what is online and how those things. So we have, you know, whatever parental controls you've got, keep updating them, keep checking them. We do know that teenagers need to hang out with their friends. And in this particular last year, you know, I was one of the ones saying, for goodness sake, any way they can hang in online because they're really missing their significant contact. And I love the fact it wasn't just social media and it wasn't just gaming. We were having kids having Zoom pizza parties and we were having them watching movies together. And I think that sort of stuff, can you see again, they're connecting via the digital world without that promise that we have to be rewarded by everything. And I think the other thing is that we have to endlessly keep saying, what are your choices while you are online? Going back to my 3 rules, which I introduced before. Try not to hurt yourself, try not to hurt anyone else, and try not to damage the world around you. So again, we have to, at different times, really have big conversations around the sorts of things we comment on and share and what is absolutely not okay. We know educationally you can't have a kid going through school without some sort of access to this. I am questioning its ability to improve educational outcomes because they haven't improved since we've gone down the digital track. I'm concerned that children won't be able to write at all soon. And that worries me when there is no access to things. I'm worried that many of our boys think that they don't need to listen to their parents about learning things from them because they can just check it on YouTube. They will lose their phone and they will have no service someday. So can you see? So fundamentally the same things that have mattered, if you can build the basic building blocks that strengthen your child to be capable and confident and accountable, they will transfer that into the digital world as well. My biggest challenge is digital abandonment. how today's children have sensed that their parents are distracted by their phones, sadly. That's exactly it. It bips and we turn away from their conversation.
Yep.
So again, I love the fact that there are really good people out there saying, now we're never going to, rip it off you because we do need it for things, but we need to also let our kids know, I'm on my phone at the moment because I'm making a doctor's appointment. I'm on my phone because I'm putting your lunch order in. I'm on my phone. Yep. And you know what? I'm just going to jump into my Insta page for a bit and just have a bit of scroll time. I need them to know when I'm using it for fun.
Right.
And how much time that is compared to how useful it is for all sorts of things that we are doing
That's
now.
a very good point, explaining to them what you're doing.
Yeah.
So then they know that you're not just having a party out there.
And turn your alerts off for social media. I'm sorry. It should never intrude into human relationships in our family.
I don't even have it on my phone.
No.
I have no idea until I log in.
Yeah.
You have said kids love structure, predictability, and boundaries.
Absolutely. That's exactly why we need to really celebrate that parents still need to have what I call swagger.
Oh, I like
right?
it.
That is because this is how it is in our home in order for us to thrive. Yes, this is why we do things in this order and this is why we have this. So that's why those things called not just, this is our bedtime routine and this is our mealtime one. This is what we do then and this is why we have chores and this is why we have, and I really like it when you have meetings that say this is why we do these things. But the predictability, again, takes away the pressure inside children to think what's happening next. So the really key thing to remember is that what the human brain likes is predictability. It really hates chaos and it hates over control, rigid. So as long as we're in the middle, there's a sense of this is how it is in our home, and each home will have a different sense of that.
And this
we
applies
need to be okay.
Every age.
Every
Doesn't
single
matter.
age.
Teenagers, no matter how much they buck that system, they love a boundary.
They can negotiate and come to you and have a really serious conversation about how a boundary may need to be altered. And you will hear them and listen to them, and you may even give them an opportunity to see if that could happen. And if it does, it's okay. And if it doesn't, then the boundary is put back in place. That is welcome. And I really want to, if we can end, that children really need parents or father and mother figures in their lives because they are children. And so if that's not the immediate, it's the lighthouse figures that say, hey, it's not a good idea, mate. That could end up badly. They still need grown-ups. We need to keep the rails on the bridge as they cross over that bridge to adulthood. You've got this. You seriously have. Even in the chaos, keep saying, I've got this, I've got this.
You've got this.
Maggie says imperfect's okay.
Imperfect is okay.
Good enough.
Good enough. Maggie Dent, you are the lighthouse. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. And all of your books and all of your wisdom and everything that you give to us that's on your website is for free, just endless amounts of advice. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having tea with me.